Hi, and welcome to Introduction to Classical Judaism. Our topic this week is the Talmud. And this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, largely on account of my grandfather. My grandfather used to get up at 4 or 5 in the morning, every morning, before dawn, and he would study Talmud for an hour or 2 hours. He would make himself a cup of coffee, and then he would study Talmud, as I say, for about an hour, until it was time for morning prayers. Every day, starting from the time he was a child or youth, and until the day he died, or just before he died. He was 96 years old. So the Talmud, as I say, is a book that's very dear to me. And on the other hand, I'm not going to pretend, it's been a very controversial book. And it's controversial for the same reasons that my grandfather thought that it was important. Namely, it stood at the basis of Jewish life for more than 1,000 years, from the time that it was written, which was roughly when the Roman Empire was going all to hell, at the very beginning of the Middle Ages, and all through the Middle Ages, and until the 1860s or the 1870s, somewhere in there, roughly in the time of my grandfather's father, my great-grandfather. As I say, it stood at the basis of Jewish life, and all of Jewish practice, all of Jewish holidays, all of Jewish law, all of Jewish prayer, all of Jewish rituals and marriage and divorce and so on, all based on the Talmud during all that period. And then, as I say, for somewhat the same reason, it became very controversial, because anyone who wanted to change Jewish life, anyone who thought, for example, that the status of women in Jewish life ought to be changed in the 1870s or in the 1900s or today, finds that the Talmud is kind of standing in their way. It's kind of their target. And all of these movements, certainly the Zionist movement, Reform Judaism, some of the liberal and socialist movements in Judaism at the time, all said, one way and another, forget the Talmud, right? Let's start new. Let's start fresh. And against them again was anyone who was devoted to kind of Jewish tradition, and said, you can forget the Talmud, but that's very much like forgetting Judaism, isn't it? Because, as we said, the whole basis of just the whole structure was to some extent the Talmud. So there it was, as I said, it was controversial. It was controversial at Graz as well. There's a story, legend, I don't know that it's true, of Professor Shereshevsky, who used to teach here about a generation ago, in the 1970s or so, that Shereshevsky had a secret class that the other faculty didn't know about, where he taught Talmud, because the other faculty, again, or some of the other faculty, were very sort of antagonistic to the Talmud, didn't want it to be taught. And he was devoted to the Talmud. So Shereshevsky, even today, I must say, right, 2015, it's not controversial in quite the same way, but you'll notice that Graz doesn't teach courses in Talmud. We teach courses in other texts or other topics that are much less controversial. The Bible, there's nobody who's going around the Jewish world saying, forget the Bible, at least not in the same kind of way. The Bible, Midrash, people think of Midrash as kind of harmless, at least, or again, it's not controversial in the same kind of way. Talmud, we very rarely run classes on Talmud, and yet, it's certainly an important topic, and it's important, I think, in terms of this class, and I'm not so much taking sides on the issue of whether it should be at the kind of the core of Jewish life, which is how Orthodoxy thinks of it, or whether it shouldn't be, which is how other people think of it. I'm not taking sides so much, but I think in terms of this course, it has a historical importance because, as I say, for 1,000 years there it was, a crucial element of Jewish life and Jewish learning, Jewish belief. So there's a historical part, and then, again, particularly for this course, it's also clearly one of the classics of Judaism. Classic in the sense, well, at least in two senses. One is that it's not, again, I said this a couple of weeks ago, it's not so much a book, it's sort of an ocean, the Talmud. It's enormous. And everything is in it, or at least that's how it appears to people, again, who are devoted to it. It's like Shakespeare, it's like the Bible. You find all of human life in the Talmud. There's no topic that the Talmud somehow forgot about or doesn't mention anywhere in any of its pages. And that's kind of not literally true. I mean, you could think, is the internet in the Talmud? Clearly not. But it seems true, again, to people who approach it that way. Everything is in it. And then, and this is the other aspect of being a classic, which is very important to this class. What do I mean by a classic text? It's read and reread and interpreted and reinterpreted. My grandfather, as I mentioned, would read it every morning and read through all the 2,000 or 3,000 pages of the Talmud over a period of years. And then he would review it. He must have gone over the Talmud, I don't know how many times, 10 times in the course of his life, 20, 50? I have actually no idea. I think 10 is sort of a minimum of the number of times he read the entire Talmud and reviewed it. And saw something new kind of each time he would do that. And that's, again, that's in one lifetime, but the Talmud has been read and reread and interpreted and reinterpreted throughout Jewish history since it was written, 1,500 years. I put up, just as a recent example, right, still being read, still being reinterpreted, I put up an article by Josh Gutov, who teaches here at Gratz, my colleague here at Gratz, which some of you may like or want to read. I hope you will enjoy it. Where he goes over a number of stories in the Talmud and reinterprets them. He concentrates particularly on a wonderful story about the great Rabbi Abaye and his student Rabbi Acha, and an eight-headed demon. It's a great story, and you should see what Professor Gutov does with it in this most recent round again of interpreting and reinterpreting and revisiting these same stories. Thank you very much, and I will see you online.